Welcome to the ZIMS podcast. I'm Jamie Meyer, the communications guy here at ISIS, and in this podcast, I just want to offer you a little bit of what's happening in the ZIMS world. As you know, we've relaunched the ZIMS project now after months of meticulous planning, including an intensive outside assessment of that plan. The ISIS Board of Directors approved it, and we started work with the new vendor, A1 Technology, in Gurgaon, India, in mid-October. So right now, many of the ZIMS project team members have been in India for a few weeks, and some of them will be there for a little while longer. By the way, here's the ZIMS project team. In our new process, ISIS is building a lot of ZIMS internally, and we've been staffing up for months to prepare for that. Actually, we like to say that ISIS is going to be building the coolest parts of ZIMS, while the vendor builds the more common parts, all of it with direct oversight by ISIS. The reason? Because ISIS speaks Zooquarium, the language of zoos and aquariums. One of our lessons learned from the Alpha ZIMS effort was that the business of zoos and aquariums is so unique that it's virtually impossible to teach it to outsiders. So we've assembled a project team here that has a huge amount of software experience and also a lot of zoo experience, and that is a very rare combination. So for the last few months, the internal ZIMS project team here at ISIS has been retooling ZIMS even before we started work with the new vendor. Now, retooling, that's a very simple phrase for an incredibly complex process, and I want to show you the two clearest examples of what it means to retool ZIMS. Here's the first. It's what we lovingly started calling inside the ISIS office the ZIMS Alpha Panic. It's the feeling people got when they laid eyes for the first time on the Alpha ZIMS screens, the first screens that were made. There was a meeting back in April in San Diego of a group of longtime ZIMS volunteers, and they rated the Alpha ZIMS screens 1 star out of a possible 5. Now that Alpha ZIMS Panic is a UI issue. UI means user interface, or in other words, user friendliness. Alpha ZIMS was not very friendly, and when people looked at it, they'd get very panicky, and you don't want that. So this is the new ZIMS look. It's the same screen as the previous one, but you can tell at a glance that the new one is far more calm and intuitive. No panic. When this lights up on your computer, you don't feel that instinctive impulse to run for your life. You can see where you are. It gives you clear direction of where to go, and it's personalized to your institution. By the way, one of the really cool things about the way that we're building ZIMS now is called role-based cockpit design. That means that the ZIMS screens you see will only show you what you need to do your specific job: registrar, curator, veterinarian, keeper, aquarist, whatever. You won't see screens that you never use. In other words, ZIMS knows who you are. Well, okay, that came out kind of scary, but really it's a good thing, and it's going to make things so much easier for you. The technology used to do role-based screen design was not used in the ZIMS Alpha effort, but this time around, we're using it, and it's going to be really cool. The second thing we worked on before we hired the new vendor was database architecture. Now, honestly, there's no way to explain this without using incomprehensible IT language that only a few people understand. But look at it like this. A contractor is building your house and tells you that there are vertical supports every 16 inches inside the walls. Now, you don't know if that's true or not until you tear open a wall when you renovate your house. Software companies often talk about having a solid architecture, but the fact is, hardly anybody in the world tears open the walls of their software to look at the architecture. In our planning for the new ZIMS development process, we, along with several expert outside consultants, tore open the walls of ZIMS and unanimously decided that going forward, ZIMS needed a very advanced and detailed architecture to make sure that ZIMS would be able to withstand upgrades and renovations in the future without having to rewrite the entire application. So the ISIS internal project team completed a lot of that work even before we hired the new vendor in October. We created a clear separation between the layers of ZIMS. At the bottom, you have the database. That's the ocean of raw data that ISIS has stored going back to the 1800s. The data access layer above that pulls data out in huge, simple chunks, like, for example, all AZA institutions. The business logic layer above that manipulates those hunks of data according to the business rules that have been set by the zoo community. This is where all that work done by the hundreds of volunteers over the years lives. It lives right in this layer, and it's still there, and it still forms the backbone of ZIMS. It's in the BLL that the word transfer, for example, has a meaning that's unique to the zoological world, different from the bank world or a warehouse full of gadgets or a college registrar's office. But you don't care about any of that stuff because you'll never see it. Really, what you care about is the top layer, the UI layer, the ZIMS screens that you see, which we just talked about a moment ago. Well, okay, that's a quick tour of ZIMS architecture, and it's probably more than any human really needs. Check out ZIMS blog for the most current details about how ZIMS is going. ZIMS blog is updated maybe about once a week. Go to www.isis.org and click on the ZIMS blog link under the ZIMS logo. And we'll also remind you every now and then by email that there's a new post. And we always appreciate your feedback about how we're communicating to you, so please feel free to make suggestions, ask questions, email me at jmeyer@isis.org. Thanks for watching the ZIMS podcast.